Welcome back, everyone. Now, let's go ahead and do a little bit of a comparison in 2021 of the iPhone XS Max right here and the iPhone XR on the right. Now, both these phones came out at the same exact time, roughly, but the iPhone XS Max was that $1,000 phone of that time and technically the better device. But the iPhone XR is still a very good phone, too. So, let's go and see which one is better, at least for you. Both these phones will be linked down below where you can buy them from, and you can help support the channel at the same time. Now, side by side, you can definitely see, as always, the iPhone XS Max was that bigger phone. It was a beautiful phone, but the iPhone XR, when it first came out, was a little controversial, I'm not going to lie. But since then, it's actually gotten a little bit of a better rep, and I think this is one of the more beloved phones. The XR has that 6.1-inch IPS panel, and overall, it's a very good phone. In terms of a screen, I don't think it's as good as the XS Max is, but it's still fairly good. It's very sharp, it's very bright, and overall, I've had very little complaints. Even over the screen itself right now, you can see how good of a screen it looks. The notch up top, but it's really not that big of a deal. The iPhone XS Max, on the other hand, it definitely has that bigger 6.5-inch Super Retina OLED display, a little bit higher resolution than 1080p, but still extremely good. Like, it's a very good panel. It's better than the XR. You still have that same notch and everything. And overall, I like the way the iPhone XS Max looks. I think the iPhone XR still looks very good. They both look almost the same exact thing, to be honest. A little bit more bezel on the iPhone XR, but they both look very similar, to be honest. Lightning ports on the bottom. In terms of thinness and thickness between them, you can see kind of the same thing. I think they both are roughly around the same thickness. I don't really think there's that big of a difference. In terms of the back, they both have glass backs, so nothing super crazy or super different here. Dual camera setup on the XS Max, single camera setup on the iPhone XR, and that really covers it up in terms of the outside. Both have wireless charging. Obviously, I have a skin on the back of this one, but they both are very similar here. So in terms of the outside, that essentially covers it. Now there's a lot of similarities when it comes down to the battery and in terms of the software. They both are rocking the same exact thing for the most part, same chipset. So they're going to be getting the same exact software versions. And on top of that, the battery sizes are almost the same. The XS Max is a little bit of a bigger battery size, but the XR is actually giving me better battery life than the iPhone XS Max. So that's another pretty big thing, for those of you who are listening. That's a big thing, and I think for those of you who plan on getting either one of these, I think the iPhone XR is probably the better one when it comes down to battery, but just know when it comes down to a software standpoint, they both are almost the same exact thing, and you're really not going to find that big of a difference between them either. So in terms of that, that covers it up there. Now let's go into a speed comparison between both these phones. Now they both have the same Apple A12 Bionic chip inside of them, but the iPhone XR has 3 gigs of RAM, where the iPhone XS Max has 4 gigabytes of RAM. So let's go and see which one is the faster one between both of these. Okay, there we go. All the apps are cleared out in the background, and we have them both side by side. The XS Max is here, the iPhone XR is here. For some reason, the sun or the lights are bothering me, but there's nothing I can do about it. Let's do phone calls 3, 2, 1, and these both are on iOS 15, by the way, so don't forget about that. Okay, there we go. Let's go ahead and get into music, which I don't have here, but we'll just kind of let go of that one. Let's do their cameras 3, 2, 1. It looks like the iPhone XR was honestly a little bit faster there. Let's do clock 3, 2, 1. Roughly around the same there. Let's go and hop out of this one. Let's get into stocks 3, 2, 1. And I think the iPhone XS Max was a little bit faster here, but the iPhone XR looks like it hasn't loaded up in the apps yet, or the stocks, so we'll let that one go. So the App Store 3, 2, 1. And it looks like the iPhone XS Max was a little bit slower, but again, we have these little pop-ups, so they're very annoying. Let's kind of scroll through here, and they're both probably going to be roughly around the same. And you can see they're roughly around the same here too, so there's not that big of a difference here. Let's go and hop out of this one. Let's go and start loading up some of these third-party apps, which we do have, I guess, all over the place right here. I don't know what's going on here. Let's get into Thank You. Let's do Quizlet. 3, 2, 1. Oh, about the same here. Netflix. 3, 2, 1. About the same here too. I think the iPhone XR was a little bit slower. Snake versus Blocks. 3, 2, 1. And a little bit of a pop-up here, so we'll click allow, and we'll get into some gameplay. Again, I don't think there's going to be that big of a difference here, but we can kind of see what's going on, and you can see roughly around the same thing. Let's get into stack 3, 2, 1. And again, another pop-up here. I think I've already been through this on both of them. I don't know why I'm still getting them. Fruit Ninja 3, 2, 1. And it looks like both kind of roughly open them up at the same time. That's actually very interesting. I didn't think that was going to end up being the case. Let's do Facebook 3, 2, 1. I think the 10s Max a little bit faster in the beginning with Twitter, 3, 2, 1. And about the same, not that big of a difference there. So Temple Run, the original one, 3, 2, 1. And there could be a possibility of one, they're kind of loading up different. And they both did. So we'll just kind of let this one go too. We'll do Temple Run 2, 3, 2, 1. And again, we get this little pop-up. So we'll kind of give it like a second or two in terms of leeway for the 10s Max. And even then with that pop-up, the iPhone XS Max still loaded up faster. That's actually pretty interesting. I wasn't expecting that to be the case for both of these. I thought the 10R was going to be faster because of that pop-up, but that actually did not happen. So that's kind of another thing to keep in mind. We can go ahead and end it off there. And I can kind of tell you, in my opinion, I think the iPhone XS Max obviously is the faster one. It kind of came down to both. I just exited out of that app. They both were actually doing pretty well. I think the iPhone XS Max may be the faster one when it comes down to these two. So that pretty much covers it, the speed comparison. Let's go and quickly hit on the cameras. Like I mentioned, single camera setup on the iPhone XR, a 12 megapixel wide angle lens. The iPhone XS Max has that dual camera setup, a 12 megapixel wide, then a 12 megapixel telephoto lens. And I think when it comes down to it, this is another one of those devices that does extremely well when it comes down to that camera standpoint. When you have a phone like this, for both of these, they both get about the same type of features for the most part. You do have portrait mode on both and everything, but the iPhone XR has always been a really good camera, but the iPhone XS Max is definitely the better one here. The front camera on both is about the same too, 1080p at 60 on the front as well, so definitely not a big difference here. So to kind of sum up this video now and to answer the question, should you go and buy an iPhone XS Max or should you buy an iPhone XR in 2021? Well, the answer is quite obvious. If you have all the money in the world, the iPhone XS Max is probably the better way to go. This is a solid phone. It's very, very good. I mean, it's just overall a perfect phone for a lot of people. The only concern, or maybe where the iPhone XR is better, is the battery life. The XS Max with its bigger display, high resolution, I mean, you're going to spend a lot more battery on this specific phone. And that's really the only other thing, and that's probably not as good as the iPhone 10 or the iPhone XS Max doesn't have, where the iPhone XR is better. But I do think, I mean, the iPhone XS Max is a very solid phone. It has a lot of characteristics, just a good phone overall, and I have very few complaints about it when it comes down to it. Now, the iPhone XR I think is a very good phone. I think it's great, and I think it's a more well-rounded phone than the XS Max, like I mentioned, and battery life being one of those things, and a couple other things here and there. I think if you're going to buy a phone, I think the XR is probably the better one for you. And I think, if it came down to both of these, I would rather have a XS Max. But the battery life is one of those things that kind of threw me off about the XS Max. Both of them have been doing pretty well on iOS 15, so I think that's a pretty big advantage. But do keep in mind that if you're planning on buying one of these, the iPhone XR may be the one for you. I think the XR is great for a majority of people out there. If you're in the market, though, I would probably recommend buying an 11 Pro Max, an iPhone 11 Pro Max. That phone is crazy. It has a lot of characteristics. It's the size of the iPhone XS Max, but it gives you better battery than even the iPhone 11, which is set to have one of the best battery lives. So take it as you will, but that essentially covers up this little comparison. If you guys have any other questions, or if you guys want to pick up any of these phones like I mentioned, links are down in the description. Get them from there, help support the channel at the same time. Hit the like button, but definitely hit that subscribe button. That'll mean so much. Check out the other links down in the description as well. My Twitter, my Instagram, my other channels. More importantly than everything else, I love every single one of you guys. Hopefully I'll catch you guys in the next video. Peace out, till then.